Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here. Today I would like to discuss midnight releases. Also just, buying games in stores in general for like those special events. But we're going to kick it off with midnight releases because that is, unfortunately, a former staple of the community where obviously a game releases at midnight. You go to the mall, you go to Best Buy, you're hanging outside or, maybe inside depending on, if it's a mall, you might be able to go inside. But you get to hang out a little bit, stand in line with fellow nerds. Maybe you get some, a little bit of cheap free merch. I remember going for, this is actually topical. Who knows, by the time I put this out, I got a whole year. But GTA 5, I remember going to the midnight release for that one. And I went to that, Fairlane Mall, shout out Fairlane Mall. And I went to that, and I remember standing in line. They gave us posters. I actually still have the posters that they gave us. So I got a poster that's an actual GTA 5 poster, so I'm sure somebody might have that poster. It's a double-sided thing. And then I also got a Destiny poster, and this was like way before the game came out, and it was like that super early promotional footage that they were using. God, I forgot what game that even was. Was it Halo Reach? Whatever game where they were teasing Destiny, where it was just like the planet at the bottom of the poster and then the rest of it was just like open space. I have a giant poster of that, like it's a huge poster. It was actually super cool. But I remember getting those two posters, and then it's just like, obviously I went to get the game. And midnight releases are definitely fun and sadly a bygone era just because of the way things are now, where heck, even the midnight release before everything became even more digitized, we're talking like 10 years ago now, because I can remember buying Resident Evil 7 in stores, and at that point even they'd already kind of stopped the midnight deal where it was like it's 9 o'clock, whatever, you can come get the game. It was that sort of thing. Like I remember leaving work and going to pick the game up, and I ran into like one dude because everyone already came to get the game. He was even in cosplay. He was dressed like Chris Redfield, which was super cool. I got a picture of him. But I remember thinking like, oh man, like we both got there kind of late, and it was like, dang, like it's weird. It's only like 9 or 10 o'clock. And it's like, yeah, everybody already came and got the game. I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of, I wanted that energy of like my fellow, Resident Evil nerds. But it's interesting how much it's changed. And at this point, it's basically dead and gone. Like I'm sure there are some places that still, on very rare occasion, do the straight up midnight release. Like I think at this point, the closest you get to a midnight release is genuinely like new consoles. And I would say we saw that a bit with like the Switch 2, and even then, obviously, it wasn't really midnight release. It was more like, hey, you can get up in the morning and do it. But still, that's why it's the concept. This isn't just for midnight releases. It's just, getting games at the store during like those special events. So you got to just be in line for it and, hope you can get it. So it's an interesting thing because, like I said, it's fun. It's not like you had to do it. Like I said, I've only done it. A genuine midnight release, I think I've only done like twice. And I honestly couldn't even tell you what the other game was. Like I remember GTA 5 and going to the mall, and I think the other one was also at Fairlane Mall too, and I just can't remember what the game was, if I'm being totally honest. I don't think I got any free merch, so it kind of like slipped out of my mind. Like, what game was that? I don't recall. But for GTA, I got two big posters, so that was nice. But the midnight release is unfortunately a bygone era, and I wish it would come back a little bit because it's a fun thing. And I wish we just had like cool events in general, because I know outside of the midnight release, one of my favorite events that I've ever seen, I wasn't even involved with it outside of just literally seeing it on TV, but I will never forget, and I think I've mentioned this before in some other episode, but I will never forget watching the Halo 3 midnight release in New York. And I watched that on G4 TV. Like obviously this was classic G4, and they shut down Times Square for that. They shut down Times Square. They had people dressed as Spartans. They had people on four-wheelers. Obviously, they're the Warthogs. And they were just riding around and stuff. And like, it's people in line. They're interviewing people. And it was the same thing. And I don't think they could even do that anymore. Not just even shutting down Times Square, but I'm pretty sure that was at Toys R Us. And that Toys R Us is not there anymore. It used to be like, it was like a 2 or 3 story Toys R Us. They had like a Ferris wheel inside the Toys R Us in Times Square. And I got to go there one time, so I know what it actually looks like. It's it was a huge Toys R Us. And I'm pretty sure that's where they would do all the midnight releases. I'm sure Nintendo can do some stuff because the Nintendo store is now in Times Square. But I doubt that store is really kicking up midnight releases. I'm sure they kind of have the same thing where it's like, hey, for the console, you can stand in line and we'll open up first thing in the morning. I'm sure they have some Switch 2s there. But other than that, I don't think they're doing like midnight releases for Nintendo games even at the Nintendo store. Could be wrong about that. So if anybody knows, please tell me. But I remember watching that and being like, wow, they shut down Times Square for a video game. Like, this is a huge deal. Like, this means something, And stuff like that just is not gonna happen. That is not gonna happen anymore. And it's unfortunate because it's just a cool little side effect of just games being so insanely popular. And it's funny, they're more popular now, but obviously technology has advanced. Companies have gotten cheaper and stingier, where it's like, hey, we can save money if we keep it digital. So that that's sadly the era we're moving towards, which is once again another topic on its own, because it is, I mean, let's be honest, it is just crazy with the direction that we're headed. So it's unfortunate that it's kind of something that's a bygone era at this point. Outside of, like I said, the console thing is probably the only thing that will remain for a long time. Like, I mean, the technology has to be like utterly insane for us to eventually get to the point where they're like, okay, we're not even doing consoles now. For streaming to get like that intense, I think we got like another 10 to 20 years before we get to the point that it's just like, hey, everything is straight digital 100%. Like, I think it's still gonna take a little minute before we get there. Sadly, I do think that is on the horizon with the way technology continues to advance. And somebody's gonna come up with something. Somebody's gonna be at CES like, yeah, we found a way to put all this data and stream it like instantaneously. And Microsoft is gonna see that and get a boner or something. And then everybody else is gonna be like, we're just gonna cut consoles. Like, we're all digital all the time. So it's unfortunate that's the era we're moving towards. But I like the midnight releases. It was just like this fun experience of, the midnight once again, this is a thing where if you're too young, this won't apply to you either, because they don't do manuals in video games anymore. But going to a midnight release was equivalent to having a game where you were just like reading the manual. Like, when I was even younger, is getting the game and then just looking at the manual like 100 times before I actually got home to play the game. Or for me personally, when I was younger, because my parents had split up, sometimes I would get a game and it's like, okay, well, I'm with my mom right now. I'll get a game, and I have the specific memory. I know what game this was. It was the Mummy Returns video game for PS2. Good times, at least half of it. Playing as the Mummy was freaking amazing, and then playing as Rick. I should have played as Rick first, but I was a kid and I was like, I want to play as the Mummy. It's so much fun playing as the Mummy, and then playing as Rick was like, yeah, I mean, I can shoot people, but I'm like, I can resurrect mummies over here. Like, this junk is crazy. Anyway, before I got to play that game, I had to wait I waited days. I was with my mom and my PS2 was at my dad's, but I was like, I want the Mummy Returns game. And I spent so much time just looking at the back of the box, opening it up, just looking at the manual over and over again, like a million times, like, I can't wait to play this game. I cannot wait to play this game. And I'm just looking at the manual. That's what it was like being at the midnight release, where it's like, you just have that anticipation building where you're like, I'm about to get this game. I've been waiting for it. I'm going to have it as soon as it drops. And then I'm gonna go straight home and I'm gonna play this game. I might not even go to school tomorrow. I might not even go to work tomorrow, like that sort of thing. Granted, I'll still do that. I did that for God of War when that came out. I had that pre-ordered at Best Buy. I had like the collector's edition, and this is like the 2016 one when the reboot first started. And I was like, yeah, I got the collector's edition off of Best Buy. I had it pre-ordered. I was like, I'm not working. Like, I took work off for that day. I was like, I'm playing God of War, and it was a great, great time. But it's still not the same. Like if I went to the store and it was the midnight release sort of deal, like, it doesn't feel the same when I pick it up like the day of. Like, it's not the same experience. I've done that a ton of times, walk into Best Buy and it's like, hey, I had this pre-order. It's like, yeah, here you go. And then I get it and I walk out. It's like, it's great to have it. Obviously, it's like I got my game or my console or, whatever I bought, my collector's edition. But obviously, the experience is nowhere near the same as going to the store at midnight and just waiting and being like, you're in line with fellow nerds. You might talk to them, you might not, but the energy is just there. And you're just like, man, this is awesome. Like, just enjoying the time and just waiting for this game. And the same can be said for Black Friday. It's not like it used to be where, same thing. You actually used to wait in line to get games. You'd have to wait, they would send you to different sections sometimes in the store, or you could, they would be like, all right, you can start lining up around like 9 or something like that, because the deal started at 10 or whatever. And then they would have all the games in like this one little section, like in this part of the store. They used to make maps and stuff for that. I don't think they do that anymore, but they used to have like maps and stuff, and that was when you could go in the store. Before that, and once again, this is going, you know, backwards in time because it's so different now, but when Black Friday like first was kicking off and was like, you know, going crazy, it was the same as the midnight release. It was like, all right, Black Friday starts at midnight, you stand in line, you better stand in line early, and then, you know, the stampede floods into the store, and then they got a little bit smarter, like, okay, why don't we just split things up into different sections? Yeah, here's a map, here's where everything is. You can come into the store at like 9 or 10 o'clock, and then you can go to this section or that section, and then that's, you know, how you get your games. And that's how I got my PS3, when it was obviously the PS3 Slim. But I remember going to Walmart. I remember I was, you know, sitting in the car for a minute. It was, my mom took me and like my first girlfriend, and we went to, you know, yeah, it was Walmart. We went to Walmart. We were in the car for a minute, and then it's like, okay, I think it's time we can head to the store. Went in, got, you know, had the map, figured out where to sit at, and then we just sat in the store. And I remember I was talking to a guy, and he was like, yeah, I'm getting the PlayStation and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna, you know, I'm getting like Metal Gear Solid 4. He was like, oh yeah, I couldn't wait for it. It was like my buddy got it, and so I played the whole game, and then I'm gonna buy it again and play it again when I get my own PlayStation. And so it was like, you know, we were talking about that. I was like, yeah, I want to get like Uncharted, and I'm gonna get like Resistance and all this stuff. Like, we were just talking about what we were finally going to get, now that we weren't spending $600, you know, on the PlayStation 3. So it was a good time. Like, I remember just talking with this random dude and just being like, yeah, this is what I want for the PlayStation. This is what I'm gonna get for the PlayStation. It's like, finally, the PS3 is gonna be great. And it was great. And I got the PlayStation 3, the PS3 Slim, came with Uncharted 2 and Medal of Honor, which I still think is the last Medal of Honor game. I don't remember, I still can't remember if they made a new one since then, but I'm like, that game didn't do too well. And I always think of that, and I'm like, I think that was the last Medal of Honor game, if I'm not mistaken. To this day, I think it's still the last one. But it was a good time. Sat in there and grabbed it, and now it's like, okay, well, you can go into the stores. I think you can still line up. I haven't done it in like a million years, because there's nothing that, you know, like at this point I got too many games. Like, unless I'm buying it day of, or I know I'm going to play it day of, I've officially reached the point of being like, yeah, I can't buy any more games. I have too many that I still need to beat, so I just don't, and there's no reason for me to, you know, do Black Friday. But when I was doing it, they still had it where it was like, hey, go to the store, you stand right here. And I remember just having my headphones in, just standing in line for like, honestly, just standing there for like an hour until the deals officially started. And then it's like, okay, now you can go in line. And then they have like the makeshift crates, and they were like next to the groceries. Once again, this was a Walmart, a different Walmart, but I remember just standing there, and then it was like, buy the groceries. And then when they finally kicked it off, it was like, all right, you go through, and each one, you know, the different color stickers, they still do that. Like, Walmart still does that, where it's like, this price is this sticker, you know, this color sticker, stuff like that. So they've kept that, but I haven't done Black Friday in so long. I don't know if they still do the thing where you go in and like go to specific sections, or if they just made it where it's like, hey, just go to where the games usually are. That's where we put them. I don't know why they wouldn't have done that in the first place, because that just makes the most sense, instead of carrying the games to like the grocery section and doing it. I know they set up like little makeshift things, but I'm like, why wouldn't you just do that where the games already are? But that's neither here nor there. That's a decision that they made. I don't really care. But that sort of experience, like just going through and just that anticipation of like waiting to get the game, it was always really cool. It was always fun. And now it's, obviously, like I said, it's a bygone era, because we're so digital with the way everything is now. And you even have the factor of being like, okay, well, if I don't do physical, I can actually have the game at midnight. That's another thing. That's like a brand new mechanic as far as the midnight release. Is like, okay, well, the actual anticipation now is like, what if I just download the game? And then I can actually play at midnight, because you can't really do that if you're buying physical, unless you can find a store that does a midnight release. Because I've done that before as well, where, you know, going to Best Buy is like, okay, well, the game released today, so I had to go and pick up the game. But I've definitely looked into it where it's like, hey, are you guys doing a midnight release? You guys releasing the game, you know, a 9 p.m. type of thing or whatever? And you know, some places just won't be doing it, because most places don't. Like, it's like, yeah, we didn't get enough pre-orders for it to be worth us doing a midnight release. So it's like, all right, well, since I bought physical, I have to wait till the day of. You know, you can't even do the midnight release even if you pre-ordered it, because a lot of stores won't do that. And sometimes I don't know like the whole rule as far as like the embargoes for officially releasing a game at 9 p.m. You know how things can do that. I'm sure there's some stores that just won't do it, where it's just like, okay, yeah, like it's probably the same thing where it's like we didn't get enough pre-orders to do that, or it's not really worth it, you know, staying open extra late or whatever. So it's all different, you know, depending on the store. But I've definitely looked into trying to be like, hey, I want to get this game physical. Are you guys doing the midnight release? And it's like, nope. And it's like, crap. Because I would love to just play the night of instead of having to wait until the next day. And typically the next day means I actually have to go to work and then do it if, you know, if it wasn't a day I took the whole day off of work. So it's just an interesting and unfortunate bygone era, but definitely some good nerdy memories. You know, there's tons of videos you can watch of people outside waiting for the PS2, you know, waiting for Black Friday to, you know, get a console a bit cheaper, stuff like that. There's tons of those videos online, but it's an interesting transition that we've had, you know, having the technology advance to the point of basically, you know, everybody's trying to go all digital, and they're definitely going to be doing it with the way things are right now as far as the tariffs and consoles increasing. It still blows my mind that Microsoft was like, $600 makes sense for a 5-year-old console. That's still crazy to me. But one day I'll be able to play OG Ninja Gaiden. That's all I want. That's all I want. If I want an Xbox, I swear to God, the first thing I would do is just buy Ninja Gaiden 2. Like that's all I want, is to actually just have Ninja Gaiden. But one day I'll get an Xbox One X. Good Lord, the Series S is like $400 now. That's crazy to me. But I would love to know what like great memories you guys have from, you know, midnight releases, whether it's, you know, you can count it as a Black Friday if you want to do just the specialty moments in general. I think the one time I can say that I bought something where I was like super hyped to get it, even though it wasn't a midnight release, I think it was also still a Black Friday sale, if I'm not mistaken. But it was actually when I got my PlayStation 4. I went to GameStop, shout out to Fairlane Mall, same GameStop where I got GTA 5. Went there, and you know what? I think the other midnight release, I'm just thinking about it now, maybe it was Uncharted? No, it couldn't have been Uncharted. I had the poster at a different time. I think I got the poster when I pre-ordered Uncharted 3 for some reason. But anyway, when I got my PlayStation 4, I remember I made the decision because, you know, I saw an ad in the paper, but they had the magazine. And so I knew the deal that they had, and it was kind of like a Star Wars bundle type situation where it was like, hey, if you buy the PS4, you can get Star Wars Battlefront. What was the other? This was like when Battlefront was like first coming out, when they first did Battlefront on like PS4, like the reboot, if you want to call it that. It was when it like first came out, so it, you know, it still was kind of in a more higher regard, we'll say, when it first came out, because it was still kind of fresh. But it was like you can buy it, and it was kind of a PlayStation bundle, or Star Wars bundle. Sorry, you get Battlefront, Super Star Wars, Star Wars Pod Racer, Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, and Star Wars Bounty Hunter. And Star Wars Bounty Hunter was definitely the thing that kind of made me go like, I wanted this game for 100 million years. I wanted the game so bad when it was on GameCube. Like really, really bad. I was like, I want Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and I never had it. And I liked the pod racing game. So I was like, all right, that's like 2 games right there, both of those. That's like 20 extra bucks. And it was basically like $60 worth of games for free almost. Plus, they had backpacks there. And it was like, you know, while supplies last, you can come in and get like these special backpacks, and you can choose which one you want. They had like a Stormtrooper backpack. I think they had like R2-D2 and then Darth Vader. And it was like a $50 or $60 value. And I was like, well, I think that's a good deal. It's like, I've always wanted Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I definitely like the pod racing game, so I would love to play that. Battlefront, I think, would be pretty cool. Once again, it was fairly fresh and all that good stuff. Plus, you know, whenever you buy a console, you get like that first month trial. So I was like, you know, I'll at least play online for a little bit, because I'll have like that little free month for the, you know, starting it off. And I went there and I was excited to do it, and when I was in college, so I like went through my classes, everything, and I was like, man, I hope they have it. And I was thinking about it all day. And I got the PlayStation, they still had the backpacks, and I got a Darth Vader backpack. And I had that Darth Vader backpack for like almost 10 years. Like, no joke. I had that thing for nearly 10 years. I probably did have it for 10 years. Honestly, it was a gaming backpack. And I think it was, I wish I could remember the name. I want to say it was like BioBrand or something like that, but they do gaming backpacks. And that thing was really good. That was my backpack for like a straight decade. And I just got it from a Star Wars bundle as like a free extra thing. And so bought the console and I bought the game, and I got like, nearly $60-$70 worth of free stuff. If you, depending on how you look at it, getting the backpack and then getting the other downloadable games, and I just paid for the console and I paid for Battlefront all the way. I will say, another random thing, that was the first time I ever got a game where it was like a full game and it was digital, and I was a little upset by that because I thought for sure that it was like, hey, you buy the console and buy Battlefront. I thought it was going to come with the game, like in the disc, and it was just digital. And I remember being a little bit annoyed with that, where I was like, oh, it's a digital copy? Like, I don't know why, but that was like the first time that ever happened to me where I got a digital copy of a game, and I was like, I thought it was gonna be like, in the box as like a specialty bundle. Because I think it was on the box where it was like, hey, you get these 4 games downloaded to your console automatically and stuff, and you get Star Wars Battlefront. I thought the Battlefront was gonna be like in the box with the PlayStation, and then it was just a code. And I just remember being like, I think it was, what it was? I think it was because it was literally like my first PS4 game, and I was a little disappointed where I was like, man, something about that physical element to it, where it was like, I'm gonna buy this game. And also I'll admit, I wasn't like the most hype about getting Battlefront anyway. So if I'm being completely honest, I probably would have sold it. I think I probably would have sold it. Potentially. I don't know. I probably not, because it was my first ever PS4 game, and I probably would have just played it online. But something about that not being physical, I was just like, I thought it was like, the whole point was like, it's a nice Star Wars bundle, and I thought it was just gonna be in the box, because I'd seen that before. Typically the game is in the box. Like when I got my PS3, that's what it was. Like when I got those 2 games, they both were in the actual box with the PlayStation. It was like, hey, you get 2 free games, and that's what it was. We hadn't moved to that era yet where everything was so digital. So I think it was just a bit of a, almost like a little bit of a shell shock. I was just like, I thought you get the full game. The full game is on the disc and everything. It was like, nope, digital era at that point. So I think that was the first time it hit me, where it's like, we're moving into the digital realm. It's like, we're not putting that in the box anymore. You bought the bundle, you bought the digital bundle. That's what you get now. So, interesting little transition, but those days are kind of long gone at this point. There's still going to be the bundles, the Black Friday stuff. There's still going to be, like I said, sitting outside for a new console. But other than that, it's like, all right, I pre-ordered it. Unless I'm digitally doing it, and then you can still have that anticipation because it's going to hit at midnight. That's kind of the midnight release now. It's just you're at home waiting for it to be like, boom, it's unlocked officially now. And that's about it. And that can still be exciting if you do that. For me personally, I just don't. But at the same time, I'm also a dad now, so I'm not waiting until midnight to play a game. And also, it has to be like a crazy game. Like even when I didn't have kids, it was like, I'm not taking off for most games. I didn't take off for everything, but I took off for God of War. It was like, it's God of War or like a Resident Evil comes out. It's like, yeah, I'll take a day off for that, because those are very special. Like Ghost of Tsushima coming out, I might have to, especially because that's gonna come out like right before my birthday. There might be some special declarations where like everybody leaves me alone. I'm playing, Ghost of Yote. So it's still there. The essence is still there when you're doing it digitally. You can have the midnight release at home, but it's not the same. It's not waiting in line. It's not getting, random free poster or some, little trinkets and stuff like that. So it's unfortunately a bygone era, but it's fun times. Definitely, the crazy stuff of seeing Halo releasing in Times Square. I just won't ever forget that. That's just a crazy experience. Like, they shut down Times Square for Halo 3. That's how big games are. And I'll never forget that, because that's such a cool thing, where it's like the midnight release of Halo 3 in Times Square. It was televised. Like, that's just crazy. That's crazy. But I would love to know your thoughts on the bygone era of the midnight release. I know it happens still, like a little bit here and there. And like I said, at this point, it's kind of like the 9 p.m. release of video games, where you can just walk in and walk out like, all right, cool, I got it. And then you just leave. It's the hype, the essence, it's not the same. It's not there like it used to be. But I would love to know your favorite memories. If you guys have some from either midnight releases or, maybe like Black Friday things where you did, where it was like how it used to be, where you have to wait in line and maybe you had to like run into the store, or even if you just sat in the store, even if it was calmer, and you just have that memory of being like, I'm here to just get this console, and I just got to wait a couple hours. I'm just sitting on the floor next to, they always had it in the weirdest spots. Like I said, even when I got my PS3, it was not by the electronics. I still find that so odd. Like, just why wouldn't you just put it where the games already are? But they always just move things around. I don't know if they've changed that at all, but still very odd, very odd. But we'll love to know if you guys have any memories of that, like your just great moments of midnight releases, or like I said, the Black Friday sales, or if you have one like me where technically I had anticipation for the PS4 and that was just a middle of the day thing, like, man, I really hope they have these backpacks, because that was honestly like the driving force, was to get like a free $50, $60 backpack along with the extra, the $40 games. It was like, man, I'm getting like $100 worth of free stuff here. That was definitely like the reason I was so anticipating going to get that PlayStation, like, Star Wars bundle, as it were. And sadly, it wasn't like a specialty console either. It was a regular PS4. So my PS4 does not have like the Star Wars designs on it, because there is a PS4 that has that. And I always thought it was kind of weird. I was like, it's like a Star Wars bundle, and I know they have these Star Wars consoles, and it also wasn't that console. Super weird. But we'd love to know any memories you guys have. If you never experienced the midnight release, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's pointless? Obviously, if you didn't live it yet, you'd have a different feeling towards it. But if you never had one of those, whether you're older or younger, if you just never went to one, what are your thoughts on it when people kind of bring those sorts of things up? And if you did the Black Friday thing, what are your thoughts on that as well? So I'm curious, memories and thoughts and everything, and where we're headed. We know why it went away, and in some ways that's good, and in some ways it's not so great. Look at the Switch 2 right now. It's just the talk of the town. Like, nothing is on the effing disc, or well, the little cartridges, I should say. But we'd love to know your thoughts on it. Midnight releases, crazy, mad dash of Black Friday sales from back in the day. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.